Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Couple comments about our bowl game against Eastern Michigan. It was certainly a hard-fought game, close game that we had anticipated. We're disappointed in the loss. There were some positive things that happened during the course of the game. He intercepted their quarterback 4 times. 2 of them we were able to return back for pick sixes, which is always hard to do. So that was positive, and we were able to come up with a 4th down stop at midfield, which is a turnover on downs. So, those things are positive. I thought we got some good pressure out of a 4-man rush, and anytime you start to generate better pressure without blitzing, that's a positive thing. I thought we had a fair number of big plays in the passing game, which was positive. Certainly there's areas of improvement, and that was a lost opportunity for a win on the road, and so we're disappointed with that. I think we had a lack of ability to rush the football from the tailback position, and we've got to address that. We were 3 for 13 on 3rd down, did not stay on the field. The time of possession was tilted in Eastern Michigan's favor. Now, some of that can be attributed to anytime you have a pick 6, you're going right back out on the field. But nonetheless, we need to stay on the field much longer. We had 3 turnovers, and to beat a team on the road like that, we've got to be cleaner in that. We need to convert in the red zone. Obviously, when you're 4th and a foot and you don't convert, that's a huge disappointment. So we've got to improve on that. I think we need to be able to stay on the field and ice the game out too. Our offense is a ball-controlled, time possession-controlled offense, and so for us to be able to ice the game out, we didn't do that. And I think we need to improve in the kicking game. They had, basically I thought we lost the kicking game, and there was several kickoff returns that came back to close to midfield, so we need to address those situations. So that game's in the book. I think we're going to learn from it. It was going to be a winnable game, but I knew going in it was going to be a challenging game. They were both 2-1s. I need to bear this in mind. Every year is a new year, but last year when we played Eastern Michigan, as you know, it was 35-7 at halftime at home. And so it was a competitive game, but we got to take steps to move our program forward. Concerning the CSU game, it's a big ball game, obviously, for the Bronze Boot, and storied history there. The health of our football team is excellent. We will have Robert Priester back this week as well. I think they're an improving football team. The game that they started out with against CU is not indicative of their football team right now. Colin Hill has played excellent at quarterback. He started the last 2 games. He's a freshman that's 6'5", 210. He's got a really good arm, and he's mobile, and I think he's putting the ball where it needs to be. He's also a tough guy. As you watched him against the University of Minnesota, Minnesota got after him. A couple really hard hits, and he bounced right back up. And so I saw a competitive nature there. So we need to do a good job against him. They've got an excellent kicking game. Their place kicker's an excellent place kicker. When we look at them, they're big and strong up front. They're going to outsize us. And last year, I know they had their way with us physically up front. So we need to go ahead and be better prepared from that standpoint. So a big ball game. We've got to be able to bounce back. There's an old adage in coaching: never let one team beat you twice. That's more easily said than done, particularly when you have a young football team. But we need to get refocused, and we'll go out and practice early this evening and get ourselves ready for the Rams. So at this time, I'll open up to any questions people may have.
Craig, you talked about the 3rd downs, and I know not all of them, but there's been a good number of 3rd and shorts that you haven't been able to get. So when you're breaking it down, is it just got to execute better?
Mm-hmm.
What has to
well, there's a combination of things, and I'm always going to be measured, Robert, before you just, as you would say, throw somebody under the bus. I don't think that that's a simplistic answer, but certainly, our offensive line needs to get better movement up front. There's maybe some decisions that our quarterback needs to make, and we need to be able to execute a little bit better. But I think we need to be more physical up front, and right now that's been apparent. We made some strides against Cal Davis, but I think we really got to work hard on finishing off blocks, and so that guys are blocking the right guy, just fundamentally and technically to be able to get some movement is going to be important.
Craig, are you, not to throw anybody under the bus, but are you happy with the overall offensive game plan, not only from the Eastern Michigan game, but in each of the games this season? And as you watch the film, I'm wondering how much are you involved in the offensive component of the football team? And if you are unhappy with the game plan and you think you need to do things differently, would you make your own feelings known to Craig about, to Brent about that?
Well, I want to be real clear. Brent Began and I have worked together for, oh my goodness, 14 years. And he's the same guy that directed an offense to go down and take a 9-minute drive against Kansas State and win 3 national championships. And he's the same guy who molded Carson Wentz. So I think you've got a pretty good understanding of my feelings about Brent. Now, certainly, every time you go out on the field, Dino, you're striving for perfection, and when you underachieve, it gives you a chance to look at things and make them better. And so, am I happy with our performance? No, I'm not happy with it, neither is Brent. But I've got full confidence that we're going to make improvement, and Brent's going to come up with a game plan. Am I involved? Yeah, I'm involved. I'm involved in the kicking game. I'm involved in the offense. I'm involved in the defense, and I'm involved in recruiting, and I'm involved in the whole shooting match. So you're not going to see me be one of those coaches that just starts pointing fingers. I'm not going to do that. I'm on the headsets. Now, do I make calls? I know this, I spent 18 years as a defensive coordinator. I know what it's like to sit in a room till 3 o'clock in the morning and go through every cut-up, every play, and every script of practice. And I also know what it's like to have somebody in my ear saying, why'd you call this? Why'd you call this? Why'd you call that? So in the middle of the game, I manage the game, but I don't micromanage our coordinators. And any head coach that I've been around that is good doesn't. I worked for Tom Osborne, and he called our offensive plays, but he never micromanaged our defensive coordinator. And so that's my stance. I'm not going to change. I understand your question. That's a legitimate question.
Could the offense be more diversified in your opinion?
Well, I think our offense should be able to run the ball better than it has. And the other thing, you got to look and say, okay, how much you want to expose your quarterback? Josh has got the ability to run, but how many times you want to put him at risk when you get into, say, like an offense like Northern Illinois has, who lost their quarterback. And so we're taking a measured approach there. I do believe this, though. For us to be successful in this style of offense, we need to run the ball better than what we are. I think we have the ability to throw the ball. I think we have the ability to throw the ball downfield well. How many times we want to do that, though, I think we'll get outside of how our framework is. We start throwing the ball 60 times a game. But I think we have to take a look and say, all right, if we're having a hard time on some interior runs, where else do we take the football? They're really, no, what you're bringing up, they're fair questions. And like I said, I've got, and I'm being straightforward and honest with you as far as how I see things. By God, yeah, we're 2-2. It's always amazing to me. People will criticize the play, well, you're really opening up the offense. I learned this a long time ago when I was in Texas. People in Texas think they know about 2 things. They know how to coach Little League and know how to call offensive plays. That's a fact. Open up the playbook. You run the same plays when they work and they score a touchdown. You're opening up the playbook. It's the same dang plays that we called the week before. So, good question. Hopefully I've given you a straightforward answer.
Coach, what has to get better in the run game to be able to do the things you want to do?
We need to stay on blocks. We need to finish off blocks. The majority of the plays that were defended by Eastern Michigan had nothing to do. You can scheme things. It's a chess match out there. You can play quarters coverage and spin your safeties down, and there's going to be a free hitter there. And when people do that, then you can run routes that are going to expose that. But if you're not maintaining blocks on the lines of scrimmage by one of your players up front, you can X and O all you want to. Those guys have got to maintain their blocks and finish those things off. And we're going to work hard on that this week.
Coach, last week we talked about having one fewer day that
challenge of that on the back end.
Pardon me?
Having a short week last week,
Yeah.
this week having that extra day on this end, can that help the guys move past that loss?
Well, our team got back at 2:45, so it wasn't completely an extra day, but it's probably a day and a half. And you're going into your fifth week. We hope, we're encouraged that we're going to be pretty injury free. And our coaches, I know, have spent extra prep time. We've had some extra prep time getting ready for CSU. So, but I think if you get way outside your routine to where, okay, now today we're going to go out and practice 2 hours in full pads, it's not where we need to be right now.
Correct. Tanner had a good game with 12 catches, and after the 2 fumbles hurt, and he was pretty distraught about that. But when something like that happens to one of your veterans, you don't expect it to, but you expect him to bounce back.
Right.
Just knowing kind of the makeup of him and how productive he's been. Do you expect a
Sure.
a bounce back?
Yeah, we do, Robert. And no one felt more disappointed than Tanner as he came off the sideline. And, it's always amazing to me. People, what are you going to do? Go over and yell at him, hang on to the football. Well, no kidding, hang on to the football. But what he needs to be mindful of is he's got to secure the ball better. And it happened twice. And, he took ownership of that. I'm sure he feels like he's one of the key people to say, hey, this is why I gave the ball up twice. They scored on those 2 possessions, I believe. Those things fly against. This is not the NFL. This is not the NFL. And Tanner's still in college, but I can tell you this: Tanner's an experienced player, and we fully expect him to bounce back. And he's an excellent player.
Coach Connor Kane seemed to have more pressure on the last game than he had any other game this season. Just what have you seen from him this season in terms of improvement?
Well, he certainly picked up some more weight, which has helped. And many times a 3-technique tackle is in a one-on-one pass situation. You can slide your protection one way or the other, and he got some one-on-one matchups, and he was able to win. And so it's encouraging. Now this week, CSU's line is they're good. And last week, they took Connor a couple times and turned him sideways and drove him back 5 yards. That can't happen. But we're encouraged. The other thing that's happened along with Connor is Johanna has been able to play some reps in there. So those 2 guys have split reps, and so you have a fresher guy in the game.
With your tight ends right now, are you pleased where they're with what they've done, whether it's in the run or pass game? I know they haven't caught a ton of passes, but are you happy where they're, or would you like to see some things change or get better there?
We'd like to see some more involvement. There were some perimeter runs that I think that they can improve on, and certainly we've not thrown the ball to them as much as what we thought, particularly Hollister, but sometimes that's just how the game unfolds.
Craig, is it fair to say that with a younger team, as you have, one of the last things to kind of come around is winning on the road and finding that win? And how, as a coach, is there anything you can do when you take a team on the road?
Some of it's a maturation process. I'll tell you what, there was a lot of components outside the football game that were dealt with this week, and I thought our guys handled them well. We were expected to fly out of Cheyenne, and we got diverted to Fort Collins. Obviously there's events that occurred after the game. There's a lot of things that I think a young football team, some of these guys are just trying to find the library right now. And so we need to be mindful of that. The transition comes from being able to compete, and then that next step is figuring out a seasoned team overcomes different surroundings, different circumstances, and is able to stay the course. And I think we're a little bit off from that right now, and this is going to be another opportunity. We're playing our rival on the road, an opportunity for us to get a win back.
Craig, there's a prevailing notion in many people's minds that EMU was the inferior football team going into this game. Thus, the loss is compounded by the fact that not only did you not win on the road, but you lost to a team that maybe you absolutely and positively should have beaten. Now, I don't hold that thought myself, but I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit. EMU, to me, looked like a better football team this year than what I saw last year, even in the way that they beat you last year, which was more so than they beat you this year. Can you talk a little bit about that program? I think Chris Creighton's got that program on the right track.
I appreciate your comments, sir, because you're accurate in my assessment. It's their third year also. Their talent level has improved. They're playing. I thought defensively they were much sounder this year than last year. I looked at the coaches, some of the coaches that they had that were coaching those guys. There's some really seasoned veteran coaches that were out there, and they had their guys strategically placed better, and they played harder. And you know what? They were 2-1 like us, and so I think some of the broad brush that people were painting, that's EMU. I think they're an improved football team, and for us to go in there, we were going to need to play not an outer body experience, but we're going to need to play pretty clean. And, we didn't. I mean, you turn the ball over 3 times. Now, how far they go this year, I don't know, but they're 3-1 and we're 2-2. And Chris was excited about the win. He was excited about the trajectory of their program. We need to take a look at it and say, let's throw out everything. How can we learn from our experiences in this game to get better? I'm still convinced that we're an improved football team, and we need to take another step forward this week. And that's why, as I said, you don't want one team to beat you twice. And so we've got to look at the game tape and say we got to improve here to here to here. And I think Eastern Michigan's going to win some more games.
And in regard to what you mentioned, distractions after the game, and I'm not asking you, Craig, to weigh in on whether you agree or disagree with the focal point of what the distraction was about. What I would like you to comment on, and I hope you will, is a college football arena, an environment like that, is that the place protest should take place?
My viewpoint is really not one about protests. What occurred at the end of the game, we were kept abreast of some of the events during the course of the game. And the information that I had was that there could be potential protests. Those were going to be outside the stadium, and that our football team was going to have an opportunity to play a game and then exit the field after the game. That didn't happen. I wish it would have been able to happen, but it didn't. And that's the only thing I can say about that, Probably doesn't answer maybe what you're really trying to get at, but that's my answer.
Do you feel like your team handled that whole situation well going on?
It was pretty. Was the first time I've ever been through anything like that, and the information I was given was that there was going to be security, and we were going to be able to exit the field, and it didn't happen. I thought our guys got off the field about as fast as what they could.
To CSU now, the guy that CSU Hill, the quarterback now, how are they a different team as opposed to the first game of the year? What's different about them? How does he make them a different team?
Well, they're able to move the ball through the air. Coach Bohl coached quarterbacks and was offensive coordinator at Georgia for several years, and he's had some really good quarterbacks. And I know that they were trying to find their way as far as in the passing game, and so. I think they've got a formidable passing game now. And so we've got to be prepared for that. And like I said, anytime you get a quarterback in the game that it can make plays, there's a certain spark that it sends through the rest of the offensive football team and the defensive football team. We've seen that with Josh. I mean, Josh can do some pretty special things that energizes a football team. And all the players on the field are important. But to say that all the players have the same role, that there's a reason why those NFL quarterbacks are the guys that are making a big difference. And so when you have a quarterback that's making plays, that makes a big difference to your whole football team. And I think they found a freshman that is not playing like a freshman.
Craig, you talked about improvement, competitiveness. How do you do that against CSU, especially after the way they came in the first half last year and kind of how physical you guys?
Right. Well, each year we've really had a difficult time. The first year we played them in Fort Collins. I mean, I think the game was over well before halftime. We were chasing points. We came up with a couple scores late. Last year, it wasn't so much the score was way out of whack. It was we got took to the woodshed physically. And our approach is one, our guys have paid the price in the offseason. We're more physical. We put on some lean muscle mass. We have more players. And then the next thing is to execute better. And then the next step is to be able to be in position to where we have a chance to make plays. Things we talked about, getting a running game going, taking care of the football. And, there's disappointing things that our defense has done last week. Obviously, we gave up 500 yards. When EMU got the ball on the 50-yard line, we need to come up with a stop. Those are things that you take the next step forward. In the midst of all that, we pick off somebody 4 times. I thought there were some good plays by our secondary, and that had been somewhat of an Achilles heel early in the year. And so to come up with 4 picks and to score twice on defense, I think there's some good things that are emerging there, and we'll need to have that take another step forward.
I think you play the games when you're told to play, but you have your rival is your first conference game, with a young team. Is that, coming off a disappointing loss, could that be a good thing to kind of help them get over this and re-energize them? Or
sure.
Does that really make a big difference?
No, I think it does, Robert. Players recognize the enjoyment of playing a rivalry game. And so, there's every game's important, but there's always, you circle a couple games on your schedule, and this is a big game. And so I think our players recognize that and recognize the importance of going down and representing our school and playing in this great game.
Coach, coming into the game, I think only 1 sack had been allowed by your offensive line, and then Eastern Michigan has 3. What were they able to do in the pass rush that was so successful?
Well, that's the other part of it, just sustaining our blocks. Sometimes it wasn't so much pressures, it was, guy getting beat one-on-one. And there's technical things that need to come into play. Need to get ourselves in better position to sustain those blocks. And that was discouraging. We had been pretty good as far as being able to protect. And then some of it comes on to the quarterback too. There was, quite frankly, a couple decisions that maybe he made, that if he made a couple other decisions, we may not have gotten a sack. But those are all signs. What is so important to recognize is this is Josh Allen. He played 13 plays last year, and he's still a young quarterback that's got, in my mind, a huge upside. I'm not talking about average. I'm an experienced football coach that's seen a lot of really good quarterbacks. Josh Allen's got a big upside. We need to recognize he's young and keep maturing him. And so some of the sacks, it's not all on the offensive line. There's some things that the quarterback got to do better.
Craig, I've only got one more for you. And the state of the team now at 2-2 in terms of being potentially at a crossroads situation. Robert had written a story recently questioning where the team stands right now. Subliminally suggesting, perhaps I think, if I can say this, that maybe you've got to worry about a tailspin situation coming off of this game against EMU. How do you view that right now?
That's a pretty loaded question, which if it's your last question, I imagine it was going to be pretty loaded. Certainly a mindset as a football team is something you, as a head coach, always have to be mindful of. To say that you've got your finger exactly on it, I think the better you're in tune with your team, the better pulse that you're going to have. I meet regularly with our captains. I had breakfast with our players this morning, trying to get they're disappointed, but it's important for us, and I'm convinced that you'll see a team that's going to bounce back and give a great effort this week. And so a crossroads, to say where a crossroad is at, I think that's like hitting a little bit of a moving target. Some people say, okay, you're 2-2. I know we're just getting started in conference play. I also know this last year. Now, I know it's last year, but last year at this time, Dino, we were 0-4. We were 0-4. We're 2-2. We got a lot to play for. And there's a lot of positive things. We're going to build on those positive things.
Real quick, can you talk about CSU's defense coach? Just you didn't really talk too much about him earlier.
Sure.
What you see on that side of the ball from him?
What you've seen, Marty English is coordinating their defense. Marty had been here. They've gone from a 3-4 to a 4-3. Now they're back to a 3-4. They've got big, strong guys up front, that are tough to move, which, we saw that last week. So we're gonna have a challenge there. I think they've got a capable secondary and some linebackers who are good tacklers. We'll need to, we'll need to come up with some good schemes, and more so, we'll need to be able to execute, and we got to stay on the field. And the things that were brought up earlier about our offense, it sure works a lot better when you're able to have a running back rush for 200 yards. And then it also works good when you're not turning the ball over. So those are things that are going to be important for us.